Welcome to our vibrant network of governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity leaders. We share cutting-edge insights, best practices, and innovative strategies to empower professionals in navigating the dynamic cyber threat landscape. Join Circolo de CISO to ignite resilience and data protection across industries.
We're going to be talking about the most talked topic in the world, the blue screen of death, a defect caused by a content update from CrowdStrike to their Falcon cybersecurity defense software. I must appreciate that both Microsoft and CrowdStrike, they came out, they spoke to the media, they kept the whole process transparent, right? And looking back, I would say when different companies go through a similar issue or a breach, it's very hard to find the CEOs up there taking questions. So while appreciating all the efforts which the IT teams have put together, and this morning, the news we have is that about 8.5 million computers globally were affected, which also impacted business across the world, airports, ATMs, banks, hospitals, offices, and various businesses, governments, including emergency call centers. And let me also not forget, I also read that Starbucks mobile apps were also down. So that means no coffee for the IT guys. Right? So I would like to, have this conversation with Ben, who is based out of Australia. So we thought it would be good to come together and talk about this particular topic as to what are the learnings for the organizations. And I think that's a conversation we are missing in the media or even in the internet. And I thought it would be appropriate for us to have this conversation. Ben, thank you so much for being back again at very short notice to have this conversation. So I'd let you start off with your views and maybe tell us what would be the shared responsibility in this specific case. Ben?
Thank you very much, Sue, and thank you for the time, Dad. So, I guess I was in the privileged place of being in Australia, which was a place that seemed to have the issue happen quite quickly, considering it was a bit of an off time in the US when they were releasing the patch. For us, was a Friday afternoon, so essentially in the middle of a lot of operations. So we felt it very acutely here, very quickly. Everything from not being able to get petrol, the petrol station, to pharmacies not being able to dispense medicines, and airlines cancelling flights, all can't bookings, hospitals going back to pieces of paper. So it kind of all of a sudden kind of felt like, I guess, something that was very serious going on, and no one kind of knew what was going on straight up. But as you just said, CrowdStrike was very forthcoming very quickly with particular information. And I would say that it would have been probably fairly publicly well known within about an hour or two after the event. So, which was good, and also on the government end, that helped reduce some of the stress that people were wondering what was going on, because even some of our radio stations went off air. So it was kind of concerning, some of the communication channels. So, and I guess this comes to that shared responsibility component where there's various stakeholders that need to communicate in a situation like this. So it was indicated the government, the Australian government came together very quickly, organised a cyber task force to bring information and find out what was going on at the government level, at the corporation level. Probably there was a bit of a mixed bag, depending on which company you're talking about, on how they filtered information through. Some of that was better or worse for others. I won't comment particularly about particular companies. And as I mentioned, CrowdStrike, they came forward and sent Microsoft very quickly with information. So I guess when we're talking about those responsibilities, it's like, well, considering this problem happened and it seemed to all happened at once at the same time, Is it the vendor, or is it the companies, or does the government play a role in trying to get companies to act a certain way in resiliency when problems do like this happen and have requirements? What are the SLAs? Not only the SLAs between the companies and the vendors, but also between the clients that these companies use. So, people who use the airlines or who use whether there are things in place to help that out as well. And is risk transfer using other vendors necessarily the only risk control that should be used when you're talking about resiliency? So what would you think on that, Sujit?
So my take, right? Like everybody talks about resiliency. People also talk about business continuity. They also talk about disaster recovery, and it's all tied to your RTO and RPO. In my view, the focus in most places would have been in the core systems. And then the teams are also under severe pressure to, keep the staff minimal. So look at automation. So automation as a way forward. So while it would ease the load on the IT teams, it also has a downside, and that's what we saw. Right? And this was an incident which was triggered by an auto update. So then, I saw you, post on LinkedIn a specific comment about best practices in terms of change management. I'd like to bring you in and get you to talk about that.
Yeah, so I guess there was particular parts about this outage which showed a lot of hallmarks of automation, considering that it happened so quickly across so many companies, and which essentially caused them, if you look on CIA, try and cause a problem with availability. So all of a sudden we've kind of caused our own cybersecurity problem. And I guess one of these things is, and this is a curious thing about this particular thing, and auto updates, I for individual users and home users and people, I think it's actually a really great thing. But when you talk about larger organizations that have critical infrastructure that's can put people at risk, so let's say hospitals or pharmacies dispensing medicines, even some emergency services had some problems in Australia as well in regards to this. But there needs to be probably a set and forget tick boxes is not the solution for your cybersecurity, and there is a particular risk there going, well, trying to say, well, our vendor, well, they've got engineers, they should make sure this will work and so forth, and this is what our SLA says and what we're expecting from them. The more important the industry that you're in, you need more than just the risk transfer as the control for making sure that an update or a patch or a system change works. So, and this is also just, I guess, talking about the change management process is that, and this particular change management process, if there was a simple test, and this was a very obvious problem, this would have got picked up by a lot of companies very quickly. And we're not talking about severe robust testing, but just in the development lab sort of test, please run the patch. So it work. It's not catastrophic problem.
Absolutely.
So I guess that sort of brings the idea of that. But companies need to be also part of that entire risk mitigation process and kind of own their own risk in that part. They can't sort of say, well, sorry, that was someone else's fault. I know it caused all these problems. And that's kind of in the news cycle at the moment too. The news cycle still kind of is pointing back to vendors, but not really asking the companies what lessons have you learnt from this and how do we get this in the future.
So Ben, looking at what has happened, some of my clients were also impacted, and mostly some of my friends in the ecosystem, like your friends, I think across the world, we were all impacted. And the point I would like to highlight, when we talk about security, the word security, you also mentioned, we talk about the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And when we talk about a data breach, we always say whether there was a disclosure of sensitive information or did anybody have access to the sensitive information. Now, in this instance, there are two things which happen. Right? One, the integrity of the systems were changed. Maybe that was the right way of doing it, or maybe it was not the right way of doing it. And I think that's something which every company has to reflect and learn from this. What is the best way to do an update? If it was a very small unknown application, it caused a change in the system's integrity. Would everybody have noticed? I'm not sure. Right. So it could have gone undetected. And maybe it would have, piled up at a particular point in time and, maybe caused a collapse for a particular company, or not at this scale. The second thing what comes to my attention is the most important thing is the availability aspect. Right. And that's where the SLAs are tied to. Most SLAs are tied to the availability aspect. Like you go to the ATM, the hope that you will be able to withdraw money. Well, everything is intact. Electricity, cooling, access control, everything is there. But if the ATM is not able to dispense money, the bank is failing to service you as a customer, right? They're not honoring the contractual or commercial obligation. So that's the point I would like to raise. And I think that's the point you're raising as well, right? While we agree that, there are work process flaws elsewhere, but we also need to internally to understand where we should have also had our checks and balances. But you want to comment anything more on that? And then maybe we can extend this to what best practices the organizations could look at.
Yeah, so yeah, that's at the end of the day, so all of these companies are servicing the public. So, and having various levels of service. Luckily, and as far as we know at the moment, it was no, I guess, great harm caused to people. There would have been a lot of stress, a lot of emotional distress with that. People not be able to get medications at pharmacies, people going to hospitals and then realizing that everything's turned into paperwork and there's no IT systems working anymore, or to find that you're making to service work and you get to work and you're getting stressed because you've got to get out there and do things for society, but you realize all these systems are down. So even for our responders and people trying to do things in our society, we found it quite difficult. And also the stress of the workers in the companies. They're trying to do their work, and they've got the public there stressed looking at them. I'm sure it would have been a really bad time to be a airline ticket desk operator at that moment. So, and you end up with a lot of very stressed people that you're going to have to deal with. So it's also for the company's own personnel that this stuff is, these particular systems need to work. So there is an impact, a human impact, which comes back to this entire companies do need to look at and take some lessons learned from this. There is a SLA to the public and to their own staff and their own good work environment. But and I guess this brings us into that change management process. Now, I guess there's the ITIL change management process. But I myself work on a very much an engineering change management process, which is much more robust when changes are done. Perhaps there might have to be some sort of indication that a bit of a combination of a particular ITIL, because the ITIL looks at change request. So is it what is the impact of this change request? maybe the impact wasn't valued right. Therefore, there should be more testing. Because there's particular security products operate at a very low level inside your operating system. They have it gets into a lot of components, and when things go horribly wrong, they will go really badly wrong. It's not like Office program restrictions. They will have access to various parts of your computer that's troubled. And further this to this, I guess it's a bit of a drive into what is the possibility of a supply chain attack. So even though it was an accidental update, this is also lessons learned. Maybe we should be checking some of our cyber is in testing patches in case something else was to happen further along the line. It's not like good cyber. It runs very close.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to share a thought here in addition to what we're saying. I think the landscape in which we operated pre-COVID and what we are in today is completely different. So some of the business continuity plans, the disaster recovery methods you probably have in play may not be relevant anymore. Take this instance, for instance, and I don't think anybody would have thought of this scenario. All systems being down at the same time. Typically, we would look at the core system or a workload, and you would have recovery plans for that, or probably you would shift to another live site elsewhere, and you would have redundancies. But now here, whether you had multi-tenant, multiple sites, you had one single issue impacting across the platform. So I would endorse your views and say, yes, you need to pay attention to how you manage your changes. Because there could be authorized changes, or there could be approved changes, or there could be changes which are mandated by the OEM or the software company. But we also know that the bad actors can also patch your systems without your knowledge and have a backdoor. So that's why it becomes very important to have a structured framework where you can even go back and verify whether the patches which are being applied or updates which are being applied are authentic. What are your fallback or recovery methods if you want to revert to the original state? How quickly can you do that? And I think that process has to be gone through.
Yeah, so there's talking about that. There's some interesting information that I came across from technicians doing the disaster recovery plans and try to get the systems back to a usual operation. And as you mentioned before, this was a problem. It was not just servers in-house, it was cloud services. So you end up with this problem between both systems. You can't just move to a cloud site all of a sudden, or vice versa necessarily.
Yeah.
And there were other problems that were coming across too, where people's systems that they would use to recover or do recovery from were also failing. So backup servers started rebooting. People couldn't get to their password vault because the computer they had the password vault was blue screeny. They couldn't remote into anything, so they had to leave their desk and then you spend an extra half an hour to an hour going from a remote site to an on-site location, and that's all downtime. So you lost that extra time too, getting respondents to the site to fix these problems. So this could indicate that perhaps some of the data recovery systems should be probably separated from your normal operating systems. To have them so closely integrated actually proved quite detrimental.
Absolutely.
So that became a problem, and that did cause problems with trying to restore some of this in a quicker time frame. Because you can imagine, hang on, I can't get to it. I've got to start half an hour later and get there. Oh, hang on, I can't get the password for it because the password vault's also blue screen. So you just can come over continuous problems.
So So
So
Ben,
yeah,
I mean, so what I'm hearing from you, and I think my thought process is also like yours. We need to start asking what next, what next, what if, right? And identify that one thing. Now, if you can't get through to your password vault, no matter what you have out there, it's not going to be helpful. The other thing which comes to my mind is uh, every company has reduced their headcounts, right? And they say, okay, we don't need to have people in all the locations. Now think of a situation where there are no tech people. It's only the business people out there. And if you need to recover, you need to get their physical, right? So that would
correct.
even mean a cloud data center as well.
Yeah, which could be a problem. Then
Yeah.
you might think, I've only got a bit of fuel in the car. I better go and get some fuel in the car. Oh, hang on, I can't get fuel. Oh, hang on, I can't get to the data center. So, you're cascading problems.
Exactly. So Ben, I mean, in essence of time, I mean, I just would like you to maybe list down a few things which our viewers could take back and reflect on. Some of the action items, what you think would be appropriate for them, maybe a couple of them.
Yeah, well, I think companies need to look at their own risks again. They need to do a reevaluation and look at the lessons learned. They may need to do some root cause analysis on, but each company will have had different problems in different ways. So find out where the root cause of that problem was, and also to look at probably other things that may have needed to be improved, and in regards to the RPO. So that'll be something that's each individual company will have to do, but they'll have to do a risk-based analysis on what happens and how to get this done better. This may also too, they might be able to then have a look at what was the cost of the issue versus what is the benefit of investing more in that. It's, considering that I'm sure that some companies did lose quite a lot of money, both small and larger businesses.
Absolutely. So my takeaway from this, and this is for you guys who are out there watching this, those of you who were not impacted by this should not be rejoicing at all. You should be talking to the people in your communities, in your professional circle. If anyone was impacted, learn from them. You cannot ignore this and go on, because this can happen to you in a different scenario altogether. So Ben, thank you so much for taking time and sharing your views. It was refreshing and it was enlightening for me to reflect some of the points which you mentioned. And I guess I'm going to take this back to my clientele and have a discussion on these points. So thank you so much again for being here. That was my conversation was with Benjamin Luck, a cyber combatant. Thank you.
Easy vision.